Hey guys, welcome back to BlackTideTV. Today is Saturday, so we've got a new epic variant review for you. I'd like to start today's video off by thanking all of the participants in last week's epic variant review Twitter poll. So if you did not know, each and every week I post a new epic variant review Twitter poll over on my Twitter page. It's linked in the description, but it's spelled the exact same way as the YouTube name, so it's at BlackTideTV. Every single week, I post a new epic variant review Twitter poll, and I ask you guys, of the 4 variants provided, which you'd like to see next the most. So last week, obviously, the Mauler Mammoth was one of those options. We had a total of 20 votes, and the Mauler Mammoth came out on top, and that's why we're seeing it in today's epic variant review. Now, there is currently another epic variant review Twitter poll running. It started last Wednesday, so you have until this Wednesday to vote on it. The 4 options are the Type 2 Butcher, the Hailstorm Ordnance, the Widowmaker Smoke, and the RPR Evo Ripper. And currently we have 30 votes. I'm hoping to get 50 votes by Wednesday, so definitely head over there and vote on which one you want to see next. Currently, the Butcher and Ripper are winning with 30% each. So definitely head over there and pick which one you want to see next. Maybe you can influence the next epic variant review. And with that out of the way, I do believe it's time that we get into this review of the Mammoth. So the Mammoth is one of my absolute favorite variants in this entire game. I think it's one of the best epic variants available, and I do believe that Infinity Ward is on the same page, as they have already nerfed this variant. Way back December 9th, they nerfed the Mauler Mammoth to have increased recoil. Not the Mauler as a whole, just the Mauler Mammoth. And if that tells you anything, it should tell you that they're nerfing a specific variant. It's one of the only specific variants that they've ever nerfed in this game. It must be incredibly powerful, and let me tell you, it really is. I can vouch for this weapon's abilities before the nerf and after the nerf, as I've had it the entire time. Before the nerf, this weapon was disgusting. It was so good. It was near laser capabilities because it fires so slow that by the time the recoil really does anything to you, you're already recentered and firing another shot. So before the nerf, this weapon was incredible. It was unstoppable. You could run around the map and you could spray and kill everybody. At this point, with the reduced recoil, or with the increased recoil, I should say, it's a little bit more difficult to handle, and you do have to really sit into a specific playstyle to use the weapon. The Mauler Mammoth isn't for everyone, but the players that do use it will definitely get a great benefit out of it. Like, the players that really fit into this weapon's playstyle will get the greatest of benefits out of this weapon. It's a very powerful weapon. It's very good at what it does, but you can't take it out of its comfort zone. It just doesn't work if you try and run around with it, if you try and rush, if you try and play a certain way. It just won't work, and you will get stomped every single time. There's a very specific way that you have to use this weapon, and I will explain that a little bit more in the latter half of this video. But for now, all you really need to know is that you're going to have a love-hate relationship with this weapon, and it's only for specific players. Now then, I feel like it's been a century since we've discussed the difference in appearance between epic variant and base variant, because most of the most recent epic variant reviews that we've been doing haven't really changed up what the weapons themselves look like. For the most part, a lot of epic variants in this game will add some kind of special camouflage or some very subtle difference to the base variant. For example, the KBAR 32 Invective adds an extra little handhold at the beginning of the weapon, at the front of the weapon. Whereas this weapon kind of goes all out. They completely changed what it looks like. It's still in the same basic shape, but apart from that, this weapon looks incredibly different. So first up, I've got a picture of the Mauler Mammoth itself in the menu system, and right away you're going to notice how cool this weapon looks. Like, it looks badass. It looks like it should be on the side of a pirate ship with this big cannon hole opening. Obviously the bullets aren't that big, but it's more or less exaggeration for effect, and it looks very basic, down to earth. It's just this long extended barrel. It looks very simple, more or less, compared to the standard Mauler, which I'll show you now, which is very futuristic. It's got a very strange muzzle at the front. It's got a lot of extra added on stuff. It looks like there's a battery piece on there somewhere. Like, it very much looks like a futuristic weapon, whereas the Mammoth more or less looks like an old-fashioned kind of pre-future weapon, as in it's more futuristic than our modern times, but not as futuristic as every other weapon in this game, if you get my drift. But I just thought I'd bring up what the weapon looks like itself, because it is a pretty interesting looking weapon. What else is interesting about this weapon, before we get into the actual traits and statistics themselves, is the description. Most epic variants, most variants in this game keep the same description as the base weapon almost all the way through. But this one doesn't, and it's pretty cool how they completely changed the entire description of this weapon. I know a lot of you guys don't read descriptions, so you might find this interesting, but the standard Mauler description is full auto heavy ballistic weapon, an experimental Gaussian delinker channels ultra rapid fire into a tight hip spread. Now the epic Mauler Mammoth description reads, full auto heavy ballistic weapon, augmented with a unique nanofluid coolant that lets it fire 50mm Jackal rounds, albeit slowly. So I like how they actually changed up the description to really tell you what you're getting. Of course, you can't read that in the armory. It would be really cool if you could, but here we have a nice little description just outlining the power of the Mauler Mammoth in that it's firing 50mm Jackal rounds. And if you did play the campaign, you would know that the Jackal is sort of like your jet fighter spaceship that you fly around in. So this weapon is so powerful that it's firing spaceship bullets. And I love how they just changed the description just to tell you that little nitpicky thing, like that little tiny thing that they really didn't need to change, but they did anyways. It's just a nice little element that they added to this epic variant. And now, of course, the time has finally come to discuss the traits on this weapon. So I'll throw the card up as I usually do so you guys can follow along and we can get going. So first, we have the epic trait Heavy Hitter, which gives you double damage with a slower fire rate. And for our common trait, we have Sharpshooter, which is increased damage range, which stacks with Rifled Barrel. Now, I've said it in a couple different epic variant reviews, but just to reiterate in the off chance that this is your first, the path to the best epic variant or the best variant in this game really relies on the camaraderie between two traits on a weapon, how the epic trait and common trait really get along. And I would say that double damage and increased damage range definitely work together to create an unstoppable weapon at long ranges. But just how much damage, range, fire rate does this weapon have? Are there any other factors at play? Well, let's delve a little deeper, starting with damage. Now, the Mauler Mammoth does in fact have double damage over the base Mauler at close ranges, but what's interesting is at longer ranges, which won't really affect you because you'll never really reach that range, the weapon has double +2 damage. Essentially, the base Mauler is doing 30 to 23 damage, 30 up close, 23 at afar. The Mauler Mammoth is doing 60 to 48 damage, 60 up close, 48 at afar. Well, 23 times 2 is 46, not 48. So at longer ranges, the Mauler Mammoth is getting double damage +2. Now, a moment ago, I briefly mentioned the extreme range of the Mammoth, essentially making it so that you will never reach that lower damage profile, and I want to shed some light on that. So I believe the in-game distances are in units, but I think you'll get the gist of this from the numbers alone. So the base Mauler's maximum damage range, where it's doing 30 damage per shot, is 787 units. The maximum damage range of the Mauler Mammoth is 1,890 units. So that's more than double the range of the standard Mauler, and it's the same with the minimum damage range. So the only time that you will ever get a 3-shot kill with this weapon, the only time you will ever drop off to a minimum damage range with this weapon is if you are using a suppressor or if you are shooting at some extremely long distance in this game. I'm not even sure that there is a distance where you can get a 3-shot kill with this weapon in this game. Maybe down the longest sightline on the longest map, you will get a 3-shot kill from time to time, but essentially you're looking at a 2-shot kill in almost every single situation, unless you're using a suppressor, unless you're firing at an extremely long range, or unless you're trying to shoot through something. So 2-shot kill almost always. It's extremely powerful, let me tell you right now. But of course, the developers over at Infinity Ward could not let such a strong weapon go unpunished, so it does have to have some negatives, and those two negatives would be the fire rate and the magazine capacity. So first up, the fire rate. The standard Mauler's fire rate is around 750, which is okay. That's right around the middle for fire rate as far as fire rate goes. The Mauler Mammoth, on the other hand, is a bit of a different story. 326 rounds per minute. That is officially the slowest fully automatic fire rate in the entire game. You can actually pull the trigger manually on a semi-automatic weapon at least twice as fast as that. In fact, I often semi-automatic fire this weapon at longer ranges to preserve accuracy. It's actually quite a good tactic because when you let this weapon fully automatic fire, its recoil will take you wherever it wants to go, whereas if you semi-automatic fire and pull the trigger yourself manually each and every time, you can preserve your accuracy and really get some shots on target at longer ranges. So there's a tactic right there for you. Unfortunately, that's not the only negative one must contend with to use the Mauler Mammoth. It also suffers from reduced magazine capacity from 80 shots on the standard Mauler to 40 shots on the Mauler Mammoth, which it kind of sucks, but it kind of makes sense. All you can really do to combat that is to run dexterity, so you can reload a little bit faster when you do run out of ammo. But that is it for today's epic variant review, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. It is one of the best variants in the game. If you do not have the Mauler Mammoth, definitely buy it, try it out. Of course, you do have to fit the playstyle being cautious, strategic, really planning out your attack, knowing where enemies are going to come from and bottlenecking them, stopping them from coming down a lane, stopping them from coming through a door. You need to get shots on target first. If enemies shoot at you first, it's all over. With the recoil, with the slow rate of fire, you will not be able to compete with enemies if they engage you first, and that's why this weapon isn't the best for a rushing type player. If you are that kind of player that can sit back and really be patient and wait for the enemies to come to you, not necessarily camping, but let's call it patrolling, defending an area, defending an objective, whenever you know that there's going to be a lot of enemies inbound on your location and you will have the first shot at all of them, you can really go on feeds for days and just completely slaughter the enemy team. If you have that mentality when you're playing where you need to defend an area, defend an objective, this weapon will be for you, and I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite variants in the entire game. Definitely worth the 4,000 salvage. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hit the like button if you did. Subscribe for more daily gaming goodness. Head over to my Twitter page. There's a link in the description at BlackTideTV, and vote on the next epic variant review. I'll see you guys on the next video.